This live presentation was produced in Ashland, Oregon by the Rogue Valley Metaphysical Library and Event Center. RVML relies on the support of our volunteers, members, and donors to organize and present these programs. For more information about this presentation, or to borrow, download, or purchase other recordings from our catalog, please visit our website at rvml.org.
It's wonderful that you're here. It's wonderful that we're all here. I mean, this is the second day of the new year. I think it's a good way to start for me and hopefully for you. So, you know, we're going to have a lot of give and take going on during the evening. I've thought about the question part of it, questions and answers, and I think as I go along, it might be a good idea to just allow questions as you need something understood or clarified a little bit more rather than just waiting till the end. How many of you know about Jin Shin? Okay, anybody know about Jin Shin TARA or the TARA approach? That's what I thought. This is new, just as I'm new in town and I'm bringing it, and so there may be several new points that I'm bringing up tonight, and I'd like you to stop me if there's something I'm saying that just doesn't click with what you learned about already. And then prior to 8 o'clock, we'll try to take a little question and answer break for broader topics, and then at the end, just before 9, we'll do that again. Can everybody see? I was trying to make my handwriting very, very clear. Okay, this is what we're talking about tonight, and I've had a couple of people come in already and say, shock? You know, are we in shock? I'll be happy to help with that if we need it. I'm saying no, yes we are, and no, we don't need help. Thank you. So I have an agenda I've outlined. This is my agenda. We may be flexible as we go along, and there may be things I talk about under a topic that don't appear to be falling under this, but this gives me my cues and clues as to the things I want to cover, because there's really a lot. There's history, and it comes from east and west and comes together. So I'm reminding myself what I don't want to leave out. And after the break, before the break is more the intellectual understanding, pulling pieces together from what we know already to what I may be bringing in that's new. And after the break, with a little more discussion to kind of provide a foundation for what we're going to do, we will do some hands-on. You have handouts, and those will be helpful for later on when we get into that. So, I'm also discovering where the focal point of my glasses are, so I may have these notes in my hand just to make sure I don't skip something I want to cover. I don't want to go into a detailed history of the TARA approach tonight, but you need to know where it comes from, because this is really interesting. Jin Shin started in Japan. Now, that might be the same as saying we humans started someplace in Africa. But before that, there was something else, and there was something else before that, before the Homo sapiens that we are today. There's always common ancestors. There's always echoes around the world, different parts of the world carrying the same themes. So I don't know what the common ancestor is, but there's a family of treatments, family of styles of healing work that include not only Jin Shin as an energy medicine, but acupuncture, Taoist healing, and several other things. Tibetan medicine, Ayurveda. What they have in common is pulse reading. Now this isn't the blood pulse, the heartbeat that you feel deep in here, but rather it's more on the surface, and it's a reading of the energy pulses in the connective tissue. That's what carries these energy pulses. And these energy pulses can tell a great deal about what's going on inside of us. So part of the practice is the study of this form of listening. It's a listening, but it's listening with the hands. So in a sense, we can say, at least as far as the Asian area of the globe is concerned, Jin Shin is part of this universal picture that has been drawn and filled in over centuries and millennia. We don't know the dates exactly that Jin Shin was being used in Japan, but it was used only by the aristocracy. They would not share with the common folk because they believed that the knowledge that they had put together and were using in this healing method was granting them longevity, and they wanted to keep that in the higher families. But you know what happens when people try to trap and hold and never let go of something? It becomes too inbred. And there was a point in time when Jin Shin got lost, completely lost. It was rediscovered by a man who was seeking to heal himself, a man in Japan whose family was a family of physicians. And this was earlier, just last century. And he was sick unto death and went away to a cabin, and he started getting a sense of touching certain points on his body, and he discovered this system. Because he discovered it intuitively, he knew he really had something, and later when he was healed, he dedicated his life to researching and was able to locate information, and that's how he was able to tie it to other forms of energy medicine, particularly in Asia. So he called this energy form Jin Shin, and it passed to the United States through a woman who studied with him, who was Japanese American, whose family was incarcerated during World War II. She did not like America or Americans. And there was a huge healing that took place with her before she was able to actually bring this system, turn around, marry an American, come back to the United States and settle, and has started the whole Jin Shin family of treatments in the United States. The only other person that took notes from the originator of Jin Shin in Japan, a Japanese man, never taught it and never let his patients, acupuncture patients, know that he was even using it. So it's one person carried it. My teacher, whose name is Stephanie Mines, whose book, We Are All in Shock, is on the back table, studied with this woman, and for 20 years. She needed help for herself. Neighbors and friends would need help, and she'd use what she was learning. She was seeing change happen. She gave birth to a daughter who had some medical problems. The doctor said, got to have an operation, little infant, dramatic, and maybe she'll live through it, maybe she won't, maybe she'll be fine, maybe she won't. A lot of kids aren't. And Stephanie said, I'm going to go back to my teacher and find out if she knows anything that would help my child. And worried as a mother would be, and she learned what she needed, and I've met her daughter, who's now in high school and does not have this medical problem any longer, and talks about it, how her mother learning this system freed her from lifelong problems. Now, Stephanie Mines was studying and working with people, studying and working with people. And she came to the point after 6 or 7 years where she said, this is doing really wonderful things with the people I'm working on, but I need to find out how to help victims of shock, particularly those who have gone through childhood molestation, sexual abuse. She herself was one, and she was finding people who needed help. She could help them with the energy medicine to a point, and then she realized there had to be some form of psychological help. And she went back to school herself, got her PhD in psychology, and worked for a while, both as a psychologist doing therapy, and when people were willing, seeing them also on the side doing the Jin Shin. It was wonderful, but she came to discover that the Jin Shin was working faster than the psychology and the therapy. So she decided to drop her practice as a therapist and incorporate some dialogue into her Jin Shin work. That seemed to be the key, and that kept developing and developing, and Stephanie decided finally, after these 18 or 20 years working with her teacher, to break that connection for several reasons. And the main one was that the Jin Shin Jutsu, which was being taught in the United States, was being held captive, wasn't being allowed to expand and be all that it could be. And Stephanie, someday I hope you'll meet her, I'm going to get her over to Ashland someday to do some of the more advanced teaching as we go along. Well, if you know her, her mind is constantly, she's learning from other people all the time. And she would never be held to, you have to do it this way. So Jin Shin Jutsu and some other forms of Jin Shin that have been created and are being used don't use any dialogue. So, you know, there's a wall around them that doesn't allow an expansion to touch what's going on with the person. And I'll talk more about that later. She also studied with Peter Levine, who's done a lot of work on trauma, and she studied with William Emerson, who's known for his perinatal trauma and shock work. So Stephanie incorporated perinatal work, and I'll talk more about that as we go along. You'll see how key this is to our healing. So she also wanted to be able to do some very specialized work and create some forms of Jin Shin that would treat AIDS. This was back a few years before some of the medication was helping people live longer, and it was such a devastating, still is, but it was worse, and Stephanie wanted to work with that. So she was breaking with everybody with her background to move ahead. So what she's done and has incorporated into the whole Tara approach is embryogenesis and the modern research-based understanding of our nervous system. She's brought in cranial work, which does wonderful things for certain types of problems. Somebody knows about that. And recently she's been teaching in Oklahoma City in a hospital and has been starting to work with an osteopath who has developed a very particular way of working with structural problems. He lit up with her work, she lit up with his work, and now they're partners in putting those two things together. So we're going to have, again, another expansion of what the Tara approach can do, and I'm going on the 5th to the Big Island of Hawaii to take her next workshop, in which she's going to be passing on to me what she's just been doing in the structural work. I'm going to bring that back to Ashland. It's very exciting. And, you know, each of us who does this work, we have her blessing, certainly, to keep expanding through our own intuition and our own studies. And so who knows where it's going to go. But we're in pursuit of healing in as many layers as we can. Studying Jin Shin is a very serious pursuit that takes into account not only the 26 sacred sites of the body, which we use to touch, not deep touch, not pressing, just touch, to help energy move. But as I say, there's so many other aspects, and there's a really great depth of understanding that we have as practitioners, which takes the Eastern medicine into account, the background of Jin Shin into account. And so we can't just start with what I'm going to show you this evening and say, I've got it, the Jin Shin car wash, you go through, you're clean, you're done. But how many of you are into your own healing path? You're working on yourself. Yeah, well, that's what it usually is in Ashland, I find. It's a very exciting place to be living. You know that it takes the depth of commitment, and it takes more than one practice and more than one decision and lifestyle change and all the things that we do in order to get to where we want to be. So studying Jin Shin TARA is very much like that. So I'm going to show you a little bit about the flows later on. The dialogue part of this is seeing and speaking the truth. If you're working with yourself, which I hope I'm not making loud noises, but okay. Speaking your truth to yourself, coming out of denial. And if you're working with somebody else, what you see, what you get, speaking the truth. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have to kick anybody's butt or do it in a very shocking way. But nevertheless, it's bringing the truth out, bringing us all into awareness. Now, shock, I'm going to be talking about. It's so pervasive. We all have it. We've all been through it. It's a bigger thing than trauma. We've adapted to it. We're used to our own behaviors. We're used to our own choices. And so breaking through energetically and breaking through with the practitioner seeing and speaking and helping to discourse about some things is part of bringing about the changes we want to see. So when we study Jin Shin, we begin with the self-care. And I'll be doing a workshop the end of this month, and I hope to do that periodically through the year and through the years. Just the foundation. After that, there's a Module 1. And with Module 1, we talk about the ordinary meridians. That is, the energy systems that run through our bodies that deal with organs of the body, such as the stomach, the heart, the large intestine, the liver. And then there's Module 2, and that begins the study of the extraordinary meridians. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Ordinary and extraordinary meridians? Yeah, one or two people. Okay. Those are created when we're still embryos. Those are formed when we're in the womb. They're big umbrella energy pathways and reservoirs. They hold the energy and they help to balance the energy when we get the shocks. We have a lot of systems within us that help to absorb shock as it happens to us prenatally and postnatally. And the extraordinary meridians are part of that. We can touch the same points, but we can do it in flows that deal with these big umbrella systems, reservoirs. Sometimes that's the way to go. When we can't just take care of symptoms by working with the ordinary, and we see where the problem is, we can go to the bigger, and we can help to balance in a greater way that goes back further into, digging down into our history, into our personal history, to get to the root. And then we can also work with something called the depths that goes even deeper, as the name would suggest, that goes that can go even preconception, all the way through birth and for the first couple of years after birth, to get to the basis of the patterns that we've developed. So self-care, Module 1, Module 2, and then there are many advanced courses, depending on what Stephanie's learning and what people are ready to learn, and when people are prepared, then they can go on and gain the knowledge in these other areas, such as embryogenesis and the primary obstacles to development that start preconception, go all the way through. Now, okay, resources. I want to talk about resources. Here's where the Tara approach is enriched with the psychology, the Western. What Stephanie developed in the idea of dialoguing between the practitioner and the client, it's important to help the person separate the past from the present. It sounds like a simple thing. How many times have you told yourself, when this person acts towards me in that way yet again, I will not react the same way I always do? How many times have we done that? We try to break our patterns, but the pattern just is an automatic thing. The reason it is because wherever there's been shock, which is a universal, not trauma in a singular sense, but it's universal, it's happened over and over and over and over again in our lives, we've created a pathway that's not just energetic, it's even neuronal. And we call it a neuronal consolidation. Or, if any of you are studying the Enneagram, a fixation, same. But we're looking at it with the Tara approach in a broader sense, energetic, nervous system, nerve pathways, brain pathways, besides behavior. You know, it's all part of the same thing. Can't tease them out. The reason, the brain, okay? Brain stem, the primitive brain at the base of the skull. The primitive brain being the reptilian, also another name for it, fight or flight. Is this something to eat? Is this something to produce babies with? Or is this something that's going to come eat me and I should run away? Or the other way some of us have chosen a long time ago is I'll play dead, and maybe it'll go away. That's primitive brain. Primitive brain has no way to distinguish between past and present. There's no time understanding there. So what happened at your birth echoes down through the years. So then the limbic brain, the mammalian, where emotions and memories are stored. Portions of it have the potential of knowing what's past and what's present. Parts of it don't. The amygdala, taking the emotion and the memory of the event and putting the emotion and the event together. So every time a similar emotion comes up, it feels like the same event, and every time a similar event comes up, if the same emotion comes up. So where's the past and where's the present? And then we have the neocortex and the frontal. We need to work our way through and resolve these stuck places within the primitive brain in order to free the limbic brain to be all it can be, and it has to line its ducks up in order for the neocortex, the human brain, to be able to think clearly and see clearly, and for for us to be as fully human, to fulfill our potential as individuals and please, dear God, as a human race. So the process of energetically helping to build new pathways so that the same old neuronal consolidation doesn't have to drive our behavior and our reactions to everything. The same is true with the dialogue, helping the client to separate, you know, you're having this reaction, or this morning at 10 o'clock you had this reaction. Let's go back. When did it start? Let's look at that. And let's look at, I want to bring up the term again, resourcing. What resources did you have? When you were 2 years old, what resources did you have? When you were an infant of 2 weeks old, what were your resources? You created the behaviors that were going to help you to survive at that time. Good for you. You know, that was a blessing. You got through that time. That doesn't work anymore. What resources do you have now? So you can understand where Stephanie Mine's working with adults who had been molested as children wanted to help them tease out the past. They couldn't do anything about it at that time. Take away the guilt and take away the need to keep reacting the same way. And look at the present. What resources do you have now? Who can you turn to? Who are your friends? Who's your therapist? Or can you do Jin Shin self-care on yourself? So that's part of our direction that we go with this. We see people with addictions. That's such a big thing nowadays. And you know, the addictions are taken on as a way to deal with shock. Alcohol, for instance, and marijuana substitute for the longing. They deaden the emotions. They substitute for a longing for connection. Heroin takes the place of the oxytocin that's supposed to be generated at birth when mother and baby are supposed to trigger each other and have that oxytocin, that wonderful, that ecstatic feeling, that feeling that gives rise to the bonding. When that's missing, heroin is often used to replace it. Speed addictions are sometimes the result of the speeding up of the birth process. Anorexia, an adult or a teenager going back to infancy, trying to get the nourishment, and this isn't just physical, that didn't happen at that time. These are the shocks that give rise to behavior as adults that is so destructive. You know, there's addictions of every kind, not just chemical. So, resourcing ourselves, being very clear that we need the help, the support, helps us to get out of our learned helplessness. When you're an infant, when these things are, these necessities of life are missing, it's a matter of life and death. We have to create a way to survive. And as adults, we finally have a chance to undo what doesn't work in our lives at this point. So a practitioner works with clients to give them a sense of present time safety. That happened a long, long time ago. Right here, right now, you're safe. Helping to build that sense of safety. And look at the difference between resources early in life and resources now. And many, many adults who've gone through traumatic childhood incidents have never gotten it that they were just as worthy as every child is of being protected. Yeah, you're right, thanks. You know, children are worthy of being protected. We are all worthy of being loved and protected. This system helps us to love and protect ourselves. Again, I'm weaving together a lot of themes and ideas, and you'll see by the end of the evening how it all fits together. The good news is the brain is highly plastic. We can change. We don't stop growing. We don't have to stop growing. We should never give ourselves that message, I'm too old. I'm finding for myself, I'm actually learning more and better as I'm getting older because I'm undoing some of the old past stuff. Isn't that wonderful? So we go for it. Because of our shocks in our life, certain incidents, our reactions to certain things will trigger just one response. And what we want to start doing is to open that and have possibility of a second response, not be stuck with the same old thing. What we want in the end is to have a panoply of responses, or better yet, not have any pathways. Well, when we're driving a car or cooking eggs or something like that, yeah, we know how to do that, and we want that to work smoothly. But I'm talking about when we have real choices, we would like to be free and clear of any pathways so that we respond at this moment to the call for a choice. So we're all working towards that. Now, I want to talk a little bit about prenatal life. Let's see, perinatal development. So I want to talk about why we need to consider life before birth as being key. So just take this as a story. So I'm sitting up there in an imaginary cliff in an imaginary place called heaven, and I'm looking down at this earth and I'm saying, okay, I have a mission, or I have a purpose, or I want to get in there and I want to learn some of the things I haven't learned before. I want an earth experience, or I want another earth experience, whatever we want to say. Let's see if there's a possibility of jumping in and having a life experience. So here's a family, here's a potential for giving me the lessons I want. So egg and sperm come together and we say, okay, here I go, diving down into this fertilized egg. And many times, many people in this world, as you can imagine, will say at that point, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? Look at this dysfunctional family. Look at this situation I've come into. Oh no. And this is before birth. All right, the egg, and so one of the shocks we can call divine homesickness. Oh, can't I go back? Can't I swim back upstream? Well, if we keep going, the answer is no, because we've made a choice here somehow. So anyway, the egg is fertilized. It moves towards the uterus. It comes into the womb. It finds a place to implant. So conception, implantation, and the beginning of the embryo producing a hormone that is going to communicate with mom. And that hormone says to mom, look, Mom, I'm here. And, well, as you can imagine, there's a variety of responses. You know, there's a response that says, oh, I think I'm pregnant. Oh, my God, we've been waiting for this. This is wonderful. Oh, baby, I'm so glad you're here. That's one response. Another response is, nah, I'm not pregnant. I just missed my period. Another response is, oh, no, I can't be pregnant. What's going to happen to me? And after that, you know, the thinking of the mother can go all kinds of directions. That is communicated in a manner to this new embryo. And within the first couple of weeks of the embryo's life, there can be already 8 different shocks due to mom's reaction, twin loss, which they're beginning to realize there's more twin loss than they thought. And this embryo is reacting to that. It could happen later too. Haunted womb from a previous something or other happening. There's a lot of things that can take place. Within the first month of the embryo being in the womb, what's developing is, among other things, the vagus nerve. This is a big deal. From the vagus nerve, there are offshoots that affect eyesight, hearing, the mouth, the jaw, the face, facial expression, the shoulders, the arms, the hands, gesture, heart, intestine, digestion. All of that is forming in the first month. Any shocks of any kind that could be toxic womb, and on and on and on, that happen during the first month can affect what we call the social engagement system. It's how I express to you verbally, with gestures, with body language. So, and then on through the 9 months, and comes birth. In my case, what happened was that I was ready to go. I arranged myself in the right position, and I said, okay, I've got my mission. I mean, we've already had some problems, but I've got my mission. I want to get out in the world and get going. And that was just exactly when my mother said, oh no, I've got to give birth. I can't do this. Oh, I'm scared to death. Get me to the hospital, get me numbed out, knock me out. I don't want to be there when it happens. So I and many, many, many fetuses ready to be born had to stop myself and say, oh, I've got to wait till she's ready. I can't initiate until she's ready. Well, there's all kinds of birth things that happen, and each one has its effect on the child. And certainly among the many things is, the very cold, clinical, bright lights, baby taken away, not even given to the mom at first, and on and on. And each of these things has its effect on the young child. There's many things we can do to that newly born child, and for the the mom that's just given birth, with the Jin Shin, with the flows that can help them to get through this. Now, how did that birth experience affect my life? I mean, it's fine that it happened then, but I can tell you that when I discovered this, it's like, aha, that whenever I'm getting ready to initiate something new, I always have this, check, is everybody ready? I can't do it until everybody's in place. Knowing that, I can begin to work with that. Bringing it into my awareness makes it possible for me to say, oh, I see, I'm just doing that again, and start to move past that. Here I am, coming into Ashland. I've lived here for 3 months. I moved here from Maui, where I was a practitioner of Jin Shin. And, I'm initiating Ashland with the Tara approach. And so you can imagine I had to go through a couple of weeks of, is everybody ready? Is everything ready? And the universe, of course, is giving me every possible sign, go for it. So here I am. And by now, being aware and working with myself, I could come here and just be delighted and thankful and happy that we're here together and we can, move through these things together tonight. So, not only then we don't want to stop when we're talking perinatally. We don't want to stop with the birth. The first 3 or 4 years of the child's post-birth life are key for a lot of their development. Part of the brain, of course, is still forming after birth. And as I said before, we need to allow each portion of the brain to have its development in order for the next part to click in and do what it needs to do as fully as it can. Otherwise, we're missing things, we're missing parts. We know some children and people who grow up into adulthood who are still fighting. They're still violent. They're violent because they couldn't get past the primitive brain. They're still stuck there. You know, we can blame them, and that's okay, but we're starting to learn a little bit more, and we know we can work with that. The good news is, again, the nervous system and the brain are workable with, and we can carry through and break through some of these patterns and help people to move forward. So what we need is mom and dad, or the caregiver, whoever that is, to always mirror to the child who that child is, not mirror who they are. We need the mom to entrain to the baby, not force the baby to entrain to the mother. Okay, so I'd like to move, you know, ask questions if you're not understanding anything I'm saying. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the self-care. This is a system which can't harm people. That's the good news. There's just one point that, there's one spot on the body that we wouldn't want to touch in a pregnant woman until she's ready to give birth. And that is on the outside of the ankle, under the ankle bone. It's 0.16 because it helps to move things along, and we don't necessarily want to do that until she's ready for it. But you can touch any of the points. You can touch it on somebody else, and you can't hurt them. Jin Shin is an embodying energy system. It's a yin system. It's a feminine system rather than a masculine yang system. It's a titrating type of healing work, meaning little by little. It doesn't force a person through. It isn't like, aggressive. The body takes in and does what comes in as it can and works with it. Sometimes when I'm working with a new patient, I can feel that the body has never had this kind of work before, so it's a little by little kind of a thing. Second time, the third time, the body, the meridian is handling that energy and it's rushing through. And I notice for myself, because I use this on myself, of course, why should I, you know, help other people and not help myself, right? So anyway, I notice that after I've done a particular flow on myself a few times, I can maybe be lying in bed and think, oh yes, the top of my head and the next point, and I can feel it running. I can feel it right now because I know the flow I'm doing. So the body gets used to it, opens to it, and is willing to work with it, and that just allows it to move more and more easily through. So here we are when we start to work on ourselves. If we didn't get entrained to when we were infants, this is our chance to entrain to our own rhythms. Jin Shin lets us start to learn to listen inside of our own bodies. And when I say listen, I use that word a lot, like listening with my hands, but it is listening with my hands. I listen to my own pulses, and I listen when I'm touching 2 points on my body. But it's something there's no word for, because it's not just a sense of touch like this, it's very, very deep. So I listen with my hands, but I also feel the movement of the energy as it's coursing through my body. And I can feel when I start to do a flow in myself, oh man, do I need that? Because I can feel just all kinds of activities, like the cells are standing up and saluting and getting in line, and you know, it feels wonderful. Opens things up that were shut down. So we're entraining to our own vibration, our own pulses. And we can feel the pulses when we're holding 2 spots on our bodies. If we can't feel it, that's okay. We can do this without feeling that. The good news is that as we practice doing this, we start to become more and more sensitive. I remember that when I was younger, which was most of my life, of course, I didn't feel inside of my body unless there was something really hurting. But I didn't feel the subtleties of my body living. And the more work I've done in myself, the more I not only feel the different parts of my body, but I can love them. I'm getting acquainted with them. I'm accepting them as part of my system. I think for a long time the spiritual way was to leave and find heaven out there. And I've become very convinced, because I was there too, you can have wonderful ecstatic experiences out there. But I've become convinced that we are here now, and we're being given the tools now to be who we are here in this body, and through this body, through our voices, through the things we have to say, through touch, through grounding ourselves all the way down to our toes, energetically down deeper than that. If you've studied Tai Chi or any of those types of things, and you've done that, you know what I'm talking about. It's a wonderful thing to bring ourselves fully, spiritually, all the way into this earth plane. By the way, is anybody else hot besides me? Is it possible for us to open the door? I think, yeah. I mean, I do have 2 layers, but when I go back out, I need them. But I think we all have more layers than one, and it's really hard to, unless we have a little air in here. So, so when we are working with ourselves, we entrain with our rhythms, and we help ourselves to break patterns, and we do it energetically, and we do it with our thinking. And we retrain our nervous system, and we open our pathways so that we have more options. So let's see. I would like to offer an opportunity for questions at this point. Yes?
How did the system get the name TARA?
Yeah, how did this system become Jin Shin TARA? It broke away from Jin Shin Jitsu and became Jin Shin TARA. Stephanie felt that Jin Shin Jitsu was a yang system that pushed harder than she felt people were sometimes ready for. And
excuse me, is that the same thing as Jin Shin Do?
Okay, now that person, Teagarden, yeah? Yes, she studied under the same person who brought Jin Shin from Japan into the United States, and she started her system. Yes, and I think she's up in Washington. I don't know. I understand she may be up north. It's another way of proclaiming this system. You know, each one of us that learns this, when we practice it enough, we're going to be feeling intuitively our way forward. You know, we will hew our own path using what's been given, using this. So it's evolution. We're carrying forward and adding our own being, as well as other things that we learn from others. And so that's what Stephanie Mines did. And Stephanie had become a Buddhist, and I'll have to get the background on that. She's Jewish from Brooklyn. You know, these things happen. So anyway, Tibetan Buddhism, Tara, the green Tara, and she calls on the green Tara. So I learned about the green Tara from her, and then a fellow practitioner gave me a beautiful poster that she brought back from Nepal of the green Tara, or of Tara with her 21 attributes. And so I'm learning little by little, and I've certainly made that connection. So it's a feminine approach. It's a compassionate approach. Somebody says, I need help, and Tara and we practitioners, you know, there's this heartfelt outreach to bring what we have to bear on the situation and to share through teaching it. So anyway, that's the best I know about that. More questions? I'm going to say, we have a couple minutes before we take our break. I'm going to say one or two things in preparation for after the break. And remember, we will be getting into hands-on work, but there's some things I want to talk about in advance. Yes, sir.
Okay, well, this may relate, just as a
Yeah.
question. If she's done studying of other systems, did she study also rebirthing, which...
Rebirthing. Did Stephanie study?
They talk about five basic traumas.
Right.
And of course, that works a lot with your breath, as well
Yeah.
as your mind and emotions. And
Okay, I'm going to repeat the question. Did Stephanie study rebirthing? I'm fairly certain she did. I didn't ask her, and I can ask her when I'm back in the islands in a few days. But I know that there was a discussion between Stephanie and some of the people in some of the classes I've taken. Those people had gone through it, and I know that there's this cross-fertilization of all kinds going on. So I'd like to throw out a couple of book titles in case people want to, attack all of this that we're talking about from different angles. Joseph Chilton Pearce, The Biology of Transcendence. By the way, talk about somebody who's carrying the torch for, we have to care for the children. We have to pay attention to how we raise the children. Wonderful, wonderful information. And I'll think of others as we go along. I was going to write them down. But I think many of them are listed in the a lot of books, a lot of good books are listed in the bibliography, and We Are All in Shock. The red book that's in the back there. Anybody who has a child or knows of a child who's ill, very ill, there's a wonderful book for the caregivers of that child to help the child to heal, help them participate in the healing of themselves. You might want to look at that one. I just have one copy. And then I have a couple of books that I use, one for caregivers, they're my copies, one for substance abuse, how to work with substance abuse, and there are several other books that are very specific for diabetes, for, anyway, they're listed back there. C. Edeltraut, she's the person who can handle all of that, and there's information about the workshop coming at the end of this month. You can see her, and Edeltraut is a very gifted healer in her own right. She doesn't do this style, but does her own style, so you can always ask her about that. How are we doing for time? Is that about it? Just, housekeeping things that are crossing my mind because of little conversations I've just had with people. I'd like your email addresses, those of you who want to give them to us at the table in the back, because I'll be letting you know not only about this upcoming workshop, but I'm seeing quite a bit of interest in what I'm talking about, and my idea anyway, I just want to see if this resonates with you, is to be able to give short talks like this once in a while, and let people know that that's coming up. I may or may not always get them into the Tuesday night, thing here, but wherever. And is that something you folks would be interested in, to know about it? So be sure I have your email. And then workshops, and other people coming and doing workshops as well along these same lines. I love being a practitioner of the Tara approach for one reason, because I deeply love attuning to people. That's why I wanted to kind of put myself here and not be you know, be in one place and really be able to look people in the eye and feel you and attune to you. Well, anyway, I'm a 9 besides anybody who's in the Enneagram, so you know we're good at that. One of these days, I'm going to put all those pieces together because there's a lot of correspondence between what I'm doing with Jin Shin and with what I'm starting to learn about the Enneagram. What fun! But it's all one anyway, right? So. Attunement. When a baby's born and doesn't have the opportunity to attune to somebody, that puts them at a serious disadvantage. I think even for those of us whose moms couldn't do it, couldn't do the bonding, there must have been somebody else who came into our lives in some manner within those first couple of years and loved us and touched us and made us feel special. And because of that, I mean, we've been saved from fates a lot worse than what we've got. You know what I mean? And actually, we don't have bad fates at all. We have wonderful ones. We're all here on our path to becoming everything we can be and healing all we can heal and all that business. So we're in a really good place. But we've had some challenges, I'm sure, all of us. And that's one of the key elements. So you've probably, those of you who do any kind of talk therapy with your clients, you've probably found that there are many people who've never been listened to. They feel as if they've never been listened to. I used to teach kids how to be mediators, and I found so many high school kids felt so alienated and as if nobody had ever listened. And we who sat there on purpose, tuning into them and moving aside our own judgments, we did something for them that just opened them up in a way they'd never had a chance to open. It's part of gaining trust. If we didn't get it early, then we lack the trust that we need to really fully blossom, really jump into it. You know the Fool card in the tarot deck. Just go ahead and step off the cliff. Gaining that trust, attunement is part of it. Attachment can follow. Bonding is the deepest part of that. And so when we are working with ourselves, we want to attune to ourselves. And when we're working with others, we want to allow that, use the eye contact and use the compassionate heart. Stop touching the microphone, and allow. So much healing can take place just with that alone. Secondly, of course, the loving touch. Touch can be of all kinds. We can come shake hands. You meet somebody new, you shake hands, or touch somebody inadvertently, or bump somebody inadvertently. That level, touching with the intent to heal, that intent actually has the power to start to change what goes on in the cells of the person. The cells can accept and start to trust also, to start to eliminate. And there's a deeper touch that when we move into some of the advanced studies in the TARA approach, a deeper touch that actually enters in deep. Dialogue. I want to mention with the dialogue how powerful that can be. I use, by the way, I don't just do the resourcing. I have my own ways, and I can't even tell you what they are. I'd have to study myself and see what I do, but a lot of it is, of course, intuitive. And every one of us who practices Jin Shin or any healing art is going to act intuitively anyway. But I was thinking about a case that I had on Maui, a 70-year-old woman who was in the deepest depths of depression and was really stuck there. She was working with another healer and was getting some sense of relief. But deep depression is not something you can easily just turn around and walk away from. This was now the second second time I saw her. The first time, partly through the cranial work I did with her, there was this kind of a change. Just, it impressed me a lot. The cranial work did so much to shift her. She went back in to ask the other healer, she went in deadpan and, just put your hands on me and tell me what you see. And she said, oh my God, before your head was like utter chaos, and now it's all in order. What happened? So that was the Jin Shin, that was the energy and the cranial work. But what happened the second time, because, healing isn't a one-time thing. It is not a one-time thing. So I worked on her the second time, but I started with talk. I felt her pulses, I saw what was going on energetically, and we talked for about 15 minutes. I felt her pulses again. The work was done. What would have happened through touch was done. And this is how powerful when we are attuned and when we have some background knowledge and also are willing to work intuitively. This is how much change can take place in a person. I had a picture in my head and I drew it because I wanted to talk a little bit about what I think healing is. Anytime you have a belief of any kind, already forget it. It's already, you can go much deeper than that. So I'm not saying this is worth very much of anything. I think it's just a way to, let's bring some things out where we can talk about them, and then let's forget it and go to a deeper level in our own thinking. But I was thinking about we as people who want to heal and come to a sense of fulfillment. I think of our healing as being perhaps in three parts, in a very general, broad brush sense. Awareness seems to be one of the biggest keys. We need to become aware of all the things we've been denying about our own patterns, if we're going to change them. And whether it's physical patterns in our organs and cells and nervous system, or whether it's behavior patterns, thinking patterns. Awareness, bringing our body sensations up into awareness, touching lovingly, being aware, and then resourcing ourselves. We need to gather for ourselves everything we haven't, that we've needed, that we couldn't get. We need to become mom and dad to ourselves. We need to become best friends to ourselves. And these are ongoing, never ends. And then we're breaking out of the one path only response to life and to the challenges that come to us. Develop new options of how to act, how to behave, and as we strengthen the new pathways, we are actually starting to weaken the old ones. I think everybody pretty much knows that concept, how that is. And the end result, the end of our path is freedom. We want to be free. So that's we as the person who's in the process of healing, the healer, the practitioner, I see the practitioner is acting on by being a support to, and the practitioner, very different, I think, from maybe the medical profession, my kind of profession. The best thing we can do is to be the loving witness, to help the person witness themselves, help them feel safe witnessing within. So we're there standing with, walking alongside of, whether we're touching, speaking, sitting silently and lovingly, doesn't matter, as much as the intent that we bring. We always have to work on ourselves, can't ever stop, and keep learning, both intuitively, staying open to new ideas coming from within, and studying, reading the books and talking to other people and learning from practitioners that we go to and work on us. So this is how I see it. Okay, working with your handouts. Oh, yes. Okay. That's, yeah, okay, that's all I need right now from that. I want to talk about the hands, the meridians of the body, the ordinary meridians that run through our stomach, liver, gallbladder, large intestine, small intestine, all the, They also run through into the fingers of our hands and into the palms of our hands. And so we can help ourselves wherever we are just by holding a finger. So I'm going to go through this. You have some of the information there. As far as whether to hold a finger on the right hand or left hand, the left would have to do with conditions that are in the past, say long-term conditions. The right would be present moment, present time problems, like, for example, if I was feeling nervous coming in and talking to you folks, I might have been sitting here, right hand, present time. I might have been sitting here, holding my index finger to handle the anxiety. But I didn't, so I wasn't. That's the good news. Anyway, let's start with the thumb. In the 5-element Chinese theory, the earth element is here. This is stomach, spleen, meridian, stomach and spleen. And when that's in balance, when the earth element is in balance, then we have a sense of being grounded and rooted and here and confident being here. We have a sense of place. We have confidence in ourselves and we have trust. When the opposite is our experience at the moment, and when I'm going through this, please give yourself the opportunity to hold, because we can all use every one of these. As I said, you can't do anything wrong, you can't hurt yourself. Every part of our energy system can use a boost. So, hold the thumb by placing it in the palm of the other hand. I'll show you another way to do it in a minute, but this is a really good way, getting the tip to the base. When you're worried, anxious, distrustful, you feel I don't belong, like you walk into a room, you don't know any of those people, and you don't like the vibes, that's one of the things you can do is hold the thumb. Yes, sir?
Does it matter which hand?
In a way it really doesn't matter which hand. You can grab for some reason I always grab my left hand fingers. I don't know why, but when I'm consciously going through all the fingers, I'll do both. It doesn't matter. One side will spill over to the other side. You could also say left hand is long-term conditions. Right hand is present moment need, but use either one or use both. Okay, so neediness, a feeling of neediness. I know I need something and I don't know what it is and I can't find it and nobody's here to give it to me. Hold the thumb. Eating disorders would have to do with earth energy. Index finger then. Yes, sir. There's a microphone coming. This time I'm going to remember.
2 words. Duration, pressure.
Aha. There's no pressure needed with any of this. No pressure at all. Duration, as long as you feel you need to. And I would say, at least a minute, because this is energy work. You're not coming in with a scalpel, which only takes a second. So, give yourself time. I feel the effect when I'm touching any of the points. And as long as it's buzzing inside of me, it's active, something's going on, so I'm going to stay with it. And I'll give you an example in a minute, particularly concerning the index finger. This is water element, so this is kidney, bladder, meridians. It would have to do also with second chakra harmony. So when it's harmonious, we're talking a good working immune system. And we're talking, just good energy. The kidney energy that they say is, the Chinese system says is like part of our chi, or is our chi. When it's out of balance, there could be thyroid or adrenal problems. Definitely survival fears. Any of the, oh my gosh, I'm afraid, should I run, should I play dead? Panic attacks, any immune system troubles, and a toxic environment. Okay, so some of you, I mentioned, I'm going back to Hawaii in a couple of days. I'll be in the Big Island, and I was there for a workshop in Kona. Kona is downwind from the volcano, and the Vog sweeps into Kona. I never liked the Vog when it crossed the water into Maui. A lot of people don't. People get asthma attacks. I don't, but I really, I feel, my eyes, my sinuses. So anyway, a couple of us that traveled from other places came into the workshop, and Stephanie Mines was giving the workshop. She said, oh, hold your index finger. That takes care of the toxins. It tells your body that it doesn't have to accept toxins from the outside. It gives boundaries, physical boundaries, and says that can stay out there. And I wouldn't have believed that, except that it worked. So I remember to use that. Middle finger is the wood element. That's the liver and gallbladder. Yes, sir.
I don't know if this is a valid question, but what about injuries, like to hurt your finger?
Oh, I'd hold it. I'd hold it. Just hold it. And it could be that it's saying something about that whole system, about that whole meridian. It's possible. Again, you won't do it any harm. Love it. Hold it with love. I mean it. Makes a difference. So the wood element, liver, gallbladder. When it's in harmony, we have good planning, good discrimination, and appropriately expressing anger. Wood element, liver, gallbladder, anger. When those things are out of harmony, and there's repetitive thinking, there's alcohol addiction, there's pervasive, there's stuck anger or eye problems, or stoicism, like, okay, I don't expect to be accepted and loved, so I'm going to just harden myself and take it. That's all within those systems. The wood finger in the palm of the hand, just hold it lovingly, and that'll help. Okay, ring finger would be the air metal. Yes, sir.
Does that go into all addictions?
Oh,
Does that pertain to all addiction?
Addictions can be earth element, which would be, for example, marijuana is an earth element. Toxins, you would want to work with the index finger. We had to do a little work with some cigarette addiction, and that would be air metal, which is lungs and large intestine. And in a minute, I might ask Edeltraud if she would say something about Jin Shin and helping with cigarette addictions. So you don't have to know, you don't have to have this all in your head. You don't have to carry this paper around with you all the time. You can try every finger, try what works, try what feels good, but I'm just giving you a sense. So the ring finger, the air metal, when it's in harmony, we have acceptance, a feeling of acceptance, connection in relationships, and good respiration, good breathing patterns, and also in the skin. The skin is working well, and there's a sense of joy. And the opposite of that is feeling rejected in relationships. Pervasive sadness. Sadness and grief are key words in here. Certain skin problems, asthma, allergies. So that's ring finger. And the little finger, fire element, heart and small intestine, have to do with creativity and, guess what, love. And this supports the nervous system. So you see a disharmony in a person that's trying too hard, pushing. And there's pretense, there's disconnect, there's the manic phase in manic depression, for example, or depleted sense, depletion in creativity and the fire of life. So that's when you'd hold this. Or the heart problems. Okay, so this is what you can do as well. Besides holding the fingers like this, you can do both sides at the same time. And the way you do it is with the inside of the thumb on the fingernail of the finger that you want to treat. And there was a case I heard about where somebody, an elderly person, was having breathing trouble and panic. And she was told to do this. This? Yeah, ring finger, breathing problems. And she did that, and she said, my God, it's helping. Emphysema, I think, is the cause there. And it, gave her some immediate relief. So these things really work. It seems like it's such a small thing, but it's a big thing. Primordial fire, yes.
So what if you're wanting to treat the thumb meridian? Would you do
Oh, I do this.
okay, thank you.
It works, I tell you. If I'm lying in bed at night and I haven't taken time to process out my day and my head's going, I'll do this, or I'll go through all my fingers. It's easy. Okay.
I have a question. I don't suppose it makes much difference, but in the system I've learned, the middle finger is the heart.
Different system.
Middle finger is kidney. It's Taoist.
Okay,
Taoist system.
yeah.
I don't suppose it makes sense.
I don't think it matters. If I were you, I'd treat them all anyway, every day.
Sure.
I find that I do that. I'll think of a reason to start doing that, and I'll just get into it.
It's taken me so long to memorize some of these things.
Then don't read my paper unless you're planning to really get into this system here.
I'm trying to get into it.
Yeah, so I'd like to show you, yes, sir.
So just a minute a day is on each
No.
finger?
Well, I don't want to say it that way. I don't want you to get that kind of a structure in your head. I'd say that you would want to hold a point, any point, for at least a minute, just because it takes that long for the energy to run. So I would say, when you think of it, do it. And if you want to really treat yourself with the fingers every day, I'm going to give you some other things. I'll show you some other things too. Do it. There are some things that are wonderful to use in the morning, some things before you go to bed at night, or if you're having trouble sleeping. Do it. I would say just don't expect to pull your hand away right away from any of these points. Stay with it. Feel. Get your attention in your body. Become aware. That's the key. Yes. Yeah.
Is the air element included in
The air element.
And if so, which finger? Yes, the air element.
The air and metal. Sometimes in some systems it's called air and some metal.
I understand.
And it's lungs, large intestine, and it's the ring finger.
Thank you.
Okay. Edeltraut,
Just
Okay.
a quick comment, but also you can get a lot from massaging your ears too. One of my yoga teachers showed me just by stretching your ears and massaging the ears. I was amazed at how much of a difference it could actually make.
That's right. In fact, there's nothing wrong with touching and working your body any place it would feel good. Just do it because it is good. Yes, sir.
Yes, an interesting thing in regarding to ears, and that is I don't want to cause panic in anybody, but it's considered in some systems that if you have a crease or a crevasse on your earlobe, going like down your earlobe, one or more, that can be indication of potential, not guaranteed, but potential stroke. Okay.
Okay.
And so,
I don't know about that.
yeah, and so with that in mind, one of the things that I tuned into is using various techniques to massage the crease out of existence.
Hey, do it all. And work with this finger too. Work with your little finger. How's that? That'll work on the heart and circulation and so on. I'd like to see if Edeltraud could give a brief moment to the idea of addictions and Jin Shin.
So first of all, I speak a little bit in an accent, so please ask me if you don't understand me. So I've been smoking for more than 35 years, and working on it, looking what is the issue, why can I not quit, and working as good as I could emotionally and mentally through this issue why I was smoking, trying to quit, and it never worked. And because my body couldn't deal without being without cigarettes, I went in panic immediately. And then I learned the techniques, the Jin Shin TARA approach, and how you deal with it by addiction. And so you have the thought pattern, I need to have a cigarette, and you can stop it. And at a certain point, the body is overpowering your willpower. It says, and I have to have it now. And first I learned to certain flows, the so-called lung flow, where you start to breathe just a little bit better, especially when you smoke for so long. And I felt how the energy was moving through my body differently. And then there are certain points you touch when you deal with addiction, which I did on a regular basis. So my body became kind of used to this so-called energy medicine. And when this overpowering need came up, I have to smoke. There were 3 or 4 points I touched, and the need was gone. I mean, often in less than a second, it was just gone. I needed to be very aware of course, to watch my body when it went into, I have to now. So what I did, I held certain points on my body, and just holding them till the addiction was gone. So I stopped 4 months ago. And once in a while I still have this, but I have to smoke now. And what I do now, I just hold this finger, and it's gone in just no time.
Thank you. That's great. Yeah. So there's hope. There's all kinds of hope for all of us. Just remember that. Okay. So let me show you some points. You have a chart. The next page, the body. I've put a couple of points on there. And just to give you an idea, point number 1 is on the inside where the knee creases. I'm going to try to walk around a little bit. Just on the inside, just below the crease. And with Jin Shin, don't worry, you don't have to get precisely on. This is amazing. You just have to get within 4 inches. We can get within 4 inches, we can do it. So in other words, you don't have to use a finger. You can put your hand there and just cover the area. It's wonderful, and you'll have it. So point number 1 has to do with getting up and getting going. And interestingly, in the embryo's development, as it starts to unfold, this is the first point that develops and that shows and that's there and it's the let's step forward and go. So in the morning, you can hold the 2.1s if you want to help you bring the energy down into your body and energize yourself forward into the day. And I'll give you another step on that too that you can do. So point 1 also helps to shut down the mental chatter because it's drawing your energy down out of your head. Very good point to remember. Number 2 is at the top of the iliac crest, the the hip bone, the top of the hip bone, on both sides. And point 2 helps with elimination physically, or eliminating people out of your life, eliminating negativity out of your life, anything that you're trying to get rid of. And it can help if you hold point 2 and on the same side point 1 at the same time, you can help with sciatica. There's another 2 points I'll show you in a minute. If any of you have that problem, lower back pain, sciatica? Yeah, okay. So anyway, point 2 held together with point 1 on the same side can help with that, and it also is a little more, gives a little more oomph to that getting up and getting going in the morning. So what you can do is go point 2 and point 1, hold it for a little while, feel, 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 and then you can do that same point 1 and point 1 on the other knee. So it's a flow. When you do more than just holding a point, and you follow this with this, you know, 2 fingers, 2 hands at a time, it's called a flow. So that's a flow that helps you get up and get going, as well as helping the lower back. Now, for those who have lower back pain, point 11 is at the base of the neck on both sides. So for me, when I have it, it's on my left side, so I'll do my left side. On the side where the pain is, so you bring your hand across and you hold point 11 at the base of the neck, and you sit on your other hand because you want that hand to be on the sit bone. And just hold that and feel the energy running between those points. It's amazing. Any of you trying it? Can you feel that? This also is very good to help you get balanced. You can do it on both sides. So point 11 and point 25. Sitting, the sit bone. Now, those of you who are trying this, just nod if you can feel an energy moving. Yeah. 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 It's a good thing to sit with it a little while. You have to tune into yourself if you're not used to that. Yes?
In doing some of this energy work, sometimes I would feel a pulse.
Yeah.
And then I kind of wait until that pulsing kind of quieted down, and that would be time to stop.
This is a good thing to work up to if you're not already used to feeling this. If you're holding any 2 points, 2 and 1, anything else, if you really focus and listen carefully into your body, when the energy is flowing, you'll get a sense of a pulse between the 2 hands. It's an energy pulse, not a heart pulse. Boom, 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 boom. It's really fun to feel that. If you don't feel that, don't worry. You might feel just the energy running. You might feel it between the 2 hands, but you might feel it somewhere else in your body. When you feel the energy moving and shifting and buzzing and doing all the things energy does, just stay with it. Stay with those points until it finishes. Or if you feel absolutely nothing because you're not used to this, stay with it a minute or 2. Just stay with it. Okay. So point number 3 is at the top of the scapula, the shoulder blade, the top ridge of the shoulder blade. So it's behind 11. 11's here, 3 is behind. So if somebody is agitated, upset, it's a wonderful thing to go up, be able to stand behind them and put your hand, just settle your hands right on top of their shoulders. Your fingers will be on 11. The heel of your hand will be on 3. And it helps tremendously. 3 helps with breathing, opens the chest. 11 helps with unloading responsibilities you shouldn't have taken on, you know, that. The women all know what I'm talking about. Okay. So that's when a person's distressed, 3 and 11 is very helpful. I'd like to show you a couple of more things. One I would suggest doing every day, and if a person's really ill, I understand from somebody who has a brain tumor, but it's quit doing anything now. She didn't need it operated on because she did this next flow 3 or 4 times a day, and I'm not saying this is the answer and cure-all for anything. What I'm saying, though, is the flow I'm going to show you, which is the main central vertical flow, affects all systems. It's like the king and queen of the whole shebang. And if you do this one once or twice a day, especially in the morning, or if you want help going to sleep at night, it's a wonderful way to relax yourself and go to sleep. You might fall asleep before you can finish it. That's why it's good to do it in the morning. While you're still in bed, you'll see why in a minute. This is the reigning flow, main central vertical flow. Right hand on top of your head. Left hand, you're going to do a series of points while your right hand stays here, and you'll see why it's much easier to do this lying down, because you can just rest your arm, your elbow on the pillow. So as you go down, hand across your forehead, or if you want, 3 or 4 fingers right in the center, but across is just fine. You'll see how easy this is. Make it easy. You'll learn this best right now by actually doing it. I think once you do it tonight, you won't forget it. Okay, forehead. After the forehead, you bring the left hand down to the tip of your nose and hold it there. Each one, remember, for a while, a minute, whatever, longer. Don't move right along. You'll feel shifts in energy. This, of course, has to do with, you know, this whole sinus area and so on. Next will be the bottom of the V of your throat. And again, light touch. 1 finger, 3 fingers, whatever is comfortable for you. So far we have forehead, nose, the V at the bottom of your throat. The next one is the breastbone, and I would put maybe the 3 fingers there, somewhere on your breastbone, so that you're covering the territory. And after that, you'll come to the base of the sternum. The breastbone ends somewhere here, you know, the solar plexus area. So just hold that. Again, you can put your hand across or a finger or whatever way you'd like to do it. And after that, you will bring your hand down and lay it across your abdomen above your belly button. So now we've done forehead, nose, base of the throat, sternum, base of the sternum, and across your abdomen, above your navel. And the final point for your left hand is the pubic bone. So you'll place your hand on the pubic bone and hold these points. And then, when you feel as if that's done, or you feel the pulsing between the 2 hands, back and forth, nice, steady, rhythmic, full, resonant pulse, then you bring your right hand down to the tailbone, and you hold these 2 points. And that is the main central vertical flow, self-care style. There's a way to do it if a practitioner works on you that also does some points on the back. Very powerful for bringing you into the body to start your day, to relax you, to bring you in balance and center you. And, okay, yeah, this, oh, the palm, I didn't finish talking about the palm. Primordial fire, umbilicus and diaphragm or pericardium, front and back. It has a lot to do with balancing the body. It doesn't have, they don't have their own meridians, but this is also a very good place to hold when we're talking hands. Okay, very quickly, I would like to run through a flow. If you or anybody that you know or are around are in shock, are in visible, shaking shock, what to do. There's the point 26 behind the armpit. You can do this on yourself. You can do it on somebody else. And there's a point 24 on the foot. Okay, so here's the foot. Here are my toes. Between the little toe and the next toe, the ring toe, but on the foot. So it's not between the toes here, but it's on the foot, very close to where the toes originate. So you alternate holding opposites, 26 and 24, until you feel something starting to happen. You go to the other side. Now that's one cycle. Again, that's the second cycle. And finally, the third cycle. This helps to take care of the shakes, the shock, and bring a person back. So that's first aid in your hands. Now, how much time do we have for questions? Okay, 5 minutes. And we have a question up here.
You were going to show us what to do to improve our sleep or to get to sleep easier?
Yeah, it's this also. It's also doing the main central vertical flow, or what I do very often is to just go through all my fingers, one way or the other. Spend time with each one. It's amazing, the shifting and the settling. Yes. Over here.
When we were doing the
main central vertical,
there was more vibration in some places than others.
Yes.
Does that mean there's more need for that energy, or it's more open to receiving energy?
To me, it feels as if there's more need.
Okay.
It feels as if, to me, when I do it, or any of these flows, that's telling me, oh boy, feel it opening up. Feel the energy moving in a place where it was constricted.
Okay, and then consequently, there were several where I didn't feel much of anything. It was sort of like...
But don't leave them right away.
Okay.
Because you might be surprised if you hold for a while. Stay with it. It'll be quiet. And then, oh, what's this I'm feeling? And don't think you're just going to feel it where your fingers are. You can feel it in your feet.
Somewhere else. Okay.
Here's a question in the front row, and then in the third row.
Is this kind of the same as kinesthesiology? Is that kind of in the same?
It isn't, but I can't answer why not. Yeah, I don't want to try to go into kinesiology, but at any rate, this is, I think, probably closer to acupuncture even. But acupuncture sometimes calls some of the same points by different names and tends, as I understand, not to go into the bigger umbrella prenatal as much as staying with the ordinary meridians and dealing with the symptoms. But I don't know. I can be corrected on that. Yes?
Yeah. Backing up to attunement.
Attunement.
Yeah. You say that this is primarily a yin system.
Yeah.
And yet is yang energy ever brought in as part of the modality? Because it seems like you're working with a variety of aspects of human consciousness and different approaches to bring all of it into kind of a unified state, the oneness, you know.
Well, I personally would say that my teacher, Stephanie, who, as I said, founded this system, might be said to use a yang approach from time to time when she feels that she needs to bring a shock approach into, verbally, into somebody who's parasympathetic, in parasympathetic shock. But anyway, I don't, it tends to be a gentle titrated system. It is not breakthrough.
But yang can also be gentle. In other words, and yin can be very, you know.
Yes, we females, you're right. We have our very powerful deep ways. And one more question.
Yeah, quick question. When I went into esoteric massage many years ago, we addressed the meridian system. Lately, I've been hearing about a different meridian system. I was using the 12 meridians.
Right.
Okay, that's what you're after too, right? Or is it the 14? I've heard of 14 lately too.
When I read pulses, I'm reading 12. But remember that the primordial fire doesn't actually have meridians, but it is part of the whole system. And then there are the many extraordinary meridians, which are these big, that touch the rivers of splendor that touch the small streams. Yeah.
I have never heard about those before. Where do you read about that?
Well, I have some material on it, not in books. I have some material on the extraordinary meridians. And when you're studying Module 2, Module 1 is the ordinary meridians, reading the pulses to get just what is the balance between the different meridians. Module 2 is getting into the quality and how to treat in these, the prenatal, the bigger, the reservoirs. Stick with us and we'll get there.
There's a visual artist named Alex Gray who does a lot of visual depictions of the energy systems and stuff, so that might help you on her question, because he does a lot of visual depictions, and they're all very accurate within the points, and some of them show huge amounts of them. And in Kundalini Yoga, they describe a lot of different energy channels they call nadis, and they say there's up to 72,000 of them.
Oh yes.
Connect.
We don't work with that many at all. This is really a much simpler system to learn.
I'm sure if you work with the main 12, it influences all the rest of them too.
Tell us a little about the workshop you're giving and what you're going to be covering in the workshop.
Last question.
This is the last question, absolutely. Okay, this is self-care, an introduction to the Tara approach. So I've given you, in a sense, an overview. We'll be going into much greater depth with a lot more information, and you will end up with one or more books and other papers to use, both for yourself, and you can treat your loved ones and get them started. And as I say, for my own sake, I want to build a team of people who know how to do this, and we can all treat each other, right? That's what I want to see in Ashland and surrounds. Does that answer your question well enough? I mean, everything I've talked about and.
The prenatal thing, that's what I'm most interested in.
Not specifically the prenatal. It's huge. It's huge. I do want to have that workshop at some point. Right now, believe me, the weekend will be filled.
Pretty basic.
This you have to have before you can go on to the next steps. You just have to. The extraordinary meridians actually cross through all these points that you're learning, the 26 sacred sites of the body anyway. So you're working on a high level by doing the very basic self-care. Thank you.
RVML Resource Center is a volunteer-operated federal 501c3 tax-exempt nonprofit organization. RVML is dedicated to providing easy access to a comprehensive collection of information on a variety of metaphysical, spiritual, and personal development subjects. RVML accepts and appreciates all donations. Material and monetary contributions are fully tax-deductible. This recording is not copyrighted, and permission is granted to broadcast, exhibit, or duplicate all or part of this program for non-commercial educational purposes. This live presentation was organized and presented by the Rogue Valley Metaphysical Library and Event Center. For more information, please visit rvml.org.